Good. Welcome back.
Good to come.
Good morning. My name is Mike Petters. I'm the CEO of Huntington Ingalls Industries, and I'm proud to be with you today. This morning, Senator Tim Kaine visited us again. He's been here a few times. I've known the senator since he was lieutenant governor, and so we've had a very positive relationship over the years. And the senator has spent a lot of time here with the shipbuilders, coming to know what we do and how we respect it. I'm also joined up here with President of the shipyard, Matt Mulherin. Matt took the senator through the shipyard again this morning and showed him what the great work that our shipbuilders are doing. Last week I had a chance to meet not just with Senator Kaine but with the whole Virginia delegation and talk about the impact of a continuing resolution with no opportunity to start work on schedule and how that would affect our business going forward, and made it clear that we need to move forward legislatively with the FY13 budget in some fashion that allows us to start programs on time. Sitting behind us, you see the Roosevelt. Roosevelt is a refueling project that we'll be finishing up this year, and coming in behind that is the Lincoln. And the workforce that is on the Roosevelt would transition to the Lincoln. In fact, the Lincoln was supposed to arrive last Thursday. And all of this process that we are in the middle of has kept the ship from getting here on time. That's going to make the process of refueling that ship more expensive for the taxpayers than we had originally laid out. And that's a process that we got to work for. Senator Kaine understands that very well. And Senator, thanks for being with us this morning. And microphone's yours.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, and good morning to you all. I really appreciate the chance to be here with so many good friends from Huntington Ingalls and folks from my own team and staff. I want to thank Matt and his team. What a great tour. I have been here, Mike, many times, but anytime I've come to the shipyard, I've usually come to do one thing, and I've gone out, and whether it was the christening on the Bush or whether it was shaking hands at the gate, I've come to do one thing and then departed. This is the first time I've been to the shipyard where I've really gotten kind of not a full tour in one morning, but seeing a lot of the different operations here at the shipyard. And I walk away with the same feeling that I always walk away with when I'm here, which is just the tremendous professionalism and sophistication of the work that's being done here. If anybody ever says to me that American manufacturing is dead or dying, I'm going to tell them you got to come and take a tour, because we manufacture the biggest items on the planet Earth here in Virginia, in Newport News, and that's a nuclear aircraft carrier, and then the component manufacturing on the Virginia-class submarines in tandem with Electric Boat, a tremendously sophisticated operation. But I guess, Mike, one of the things that and I credit the team for reinforcing this impression as we've gone through, one of the things that I walk away strongly with is a sense of how critical timing is here. Things are really set up to proceed, just back to back, put it together like a jigsaw puzzle, and with that you get efficiencies. You get efficiencies that save taxpayer money and make sure that the quality of the work is at its very highest. When you start to inject this degree of budgetary uncertainty into the process, whether it's no FY13 budget and a set of continuing resolutions, or you put sort of self-inflicted wounds like a sequester into the middle of it, you disrupt the timing, you disrupt the efficiencies, and you impinge upon the necessary work being done in its most efficient way. We really are. I mean, I feel this so strongly that when you see the sophistication and the quality of work that's done here, what we're wrestling with in Congress is not that hard. It is not that hard. We've got a balance sheet that needs to be fixed. The only way you fix a balance sheet is fixing both sides of the balance sheet. And we have to be willing to do it. And compared to the challenges, the technical challenges of some of the engineering and construction work here, the ability to fix this budgetary situation in Congress is conceptually not that difficult. All it requires is a willingness to compromise. That's what's missing right now. That's what's missing in a significant degree, and it's been missing for some time. I have been promoting, and Mike and I have talked about this, the notion that at least the two houses of Congress are on path to produce budgets this year in the ordinary course of business, kind of under normal budgetary timing for the first time since 2009. Both houses are scheduled to produce budgets by mid-April, or our paychecks stop, which tells me there's a pretty good likelihood that we'll actually get budgets out of both houses by mid-April. Now that you still have to find a compromise going forward, but that's something that's done in every state legislature in the United States every year and has been done up to very recently in Congress as well, finding that compromise in a conference committee. So I've been taking the position that with respect to sequester and the continuing resolution, let's make our budget decisions, whether they're about cutting expenses, whether they're about finding revenues, or whether they're about reducing the deficit. Let's make those decisions in accord with a normal budget process. That's what Huntington Ingalls does. That's what any business does. That's what, frankly, cities and states do, is you drive your policy decisions in the ordinary course of a normal budget process. If we can do that with budgets imminent this year for the first time since '09, we ought to let that process drive the decisions we're making about expenses, about savings, about revenues, and about deficit reduction. And there will be some tough decisions in that will not be easy, but they will be logical. They'll be forward-focused. They'll be done in a way that organizations ought to do budgeting. So I'm very happy to be here. This is the first of a 3-day set of events that I'm doing. Really, it was originally designed as sort of as a new senator and a new member of the Armed Services Committee to kind of touch different parts of the Armed Services operation, different service branches, whether from VA hospitals to ROTC programs, shipbuilders, naval bases, all over the state. But it is so we had set it up as kind of a learning curve tour, but it's assumed a greater sense of urgency because of the need to get some of these decisions right. It is my hope that we will find that willingness to compromise. Again, it's not a complicated thing. We have political pressures, but compared to the sophistication and the quality of the work that's being done here, the decisions that we have to make to get this budget in a better process and to avoid ugly and non-strategic cuts is not hard compared to the work that's done here. I feel for folks here whose jobs are on the line. I'm going to be going next to a session with ship repairers, smaller private ship repairers over in Portsmouth. I feel for them and their uncertainty. For the owners who care about their workers and know them all by name and know their families by name, who are uncertain about their futures, and the workers themselves. And I tell you, I feel for the folks on the federal side too. People in the Pentagon who are budget experts, they ought to be spending their time looking forward at crafting the best budget for our national security going forward. Instead, what they're spending all their time on is contorting themselves around artificial deadlines and gimmicks like CRs that just go ahead a couple months at a time, or the sequester gimmick. We just need to get back on a normal budgetary schedule. We're taking some steps to do that. That's positive. But we got a big chunk of work to do to try to avoid these self-inflicted wounds and find a better path. And I appreciate you guys, all the work that you do here, but also for underlining the need for a better solution with this tour today. So thank you, Mike, Matt, and I'd love to now open it up. Please, Michael. Well, the chances, every day that goes by, the chances go down. Now, you have seen Congress act at the last minute. I mean, I wish that were not the case, but frankly, as recently as 2 months ago, you saw Congress act at the last minute, right at the end of the fiscal year, to avoid the expiration of all the Bush tax cuts. So there is a precedent for some 11th hour activity. The Senate, before we departed to do these state tours, put a balanced plan on the table that basically said, let's align our decisions with the annual budget process, and let's buy down the deficit, basically take that first year sequester number and buy it down as we work on the budgets, and buy it down with an equal mix of revenues and expenses. I do believe firmly the only way to get to balance is through balance. The only way to fix a balance sheet is to fix both sides of the balance sheet. That will be up for a vote next week. The Republicans in the Senate will likely have a counter plan up for a vote. We'll see how those votes go, and then we'll see if we can put something together. But I insist that there is no reason we shouldn't be able to fix this. This March 1 deadline is completely artificial. It has no bearing on any normal budget calendar. It has no bearing on any decision about the security of the world or the state of the economy. And if after members of Congress put it together and said it'll never go into effect because we made it so ugly it will never have it go into effect, to be just impotent in the face of it and let it go into effect would be a huge abdication of responsibility.
You talked about that being artificial, but the reality is in Washington, a lot of people are talking about, well, it's going to happen. Virginia's delegation has made very strong point. We can't let this happen.
Yep. There may be, Bill, there may be a greater sense of urgency here. We may just see it more palpably in our neighborhoods. And again, whether we're talking, I haven't even gotten into the non-defense side of this. The non-defense side is incredibly significant. If you look at 70,000 kids potentially being thrown off Head Start rolls across the United States because of the sequester, and that's just one line item out of hundreds of line items on the non-defense side. We might feel more palpably the defense cuts here, but I would say the non-defense cuts are felt everywhere. And frankly, most states have a pretty significant defense presence. I mean, just looking at the supply chain of Huntington Ingalls, I mean, you've got an awful lot of Virginians in your supply chain, Virginian institutions, but not just Virginian. People are feeling this everywhere, and it is my hope that members of Congress who are in state doing work like I am this week will hear this message and hear it loud and clear, because again, the solution is not hard. I talked to somebody last week who said, well, we ought to solve this, but of course we can't do anything on the revenue side. And I said, well, I've been talking to people who say we ought to solve this, but we can't do anything on the expense side. If we walk into this process with it has to be done my way, we're not going to do it, well, then we can pretty much guarantee that there will be a sequester, and then we'll continue to drift forward in a CR mode that does not, appropriately enable us to spend dollars to advance our national security priorities. So I hope people are hearing a message at home this week. There is a precedent for some 11th hour action. I'm still new to the body, so sometimes I don't know whether I guess that we're going to let it happen is fatalism or a negotiating tactic. Well, we'll get together next week, and we'll find out who's serious.
You say you express your confidence that we can get this thing fixed and solved in time. It's kind of hard though to really take that in.
Right.
See the Navy doing things that it's done already. The Navy is obviously
Sure.
expressing little confidence. I mean, they canceled the deployment of the Truman, as Mr. Pedersen said. The Lincoln's not here.
Lincoln was supposed to be here. Sure.
I mean, that doesn't sound like a whole lot of confidence.
Well, I'm optimistic. The confidence is I would understand why confidence would be shaken when you see the announcements that have been done, announcements about dramatic scale down in ship repair and maintenance activities in quarters 3 and 4. I'm going to hear an earful about that at the next meeting that I go to. So I would understand why Congress has shaken the confidence of the public by their inability to work together. My sense is, look, now let's telescope big picture, not just to shipbuilding and not just to the federal budget, but to the economy generally. We're seeing some positive signs in the economy, whether it's the stock market, whether it's housing, whether it's some consumer activity, whether it's unemployment claims. We're seeing some positive signs. We're also seeing positive signs here that are still match up pretty well against some challenging signs we're seeing elsewhere. This is a really great moment for us to get it right. If we get it right on a budget deal, I have a feeling it's going to put a bunch of helium into an economy that is already showing some positive signs. Why don't we put some helium into an economy right now, put more people back to work, and frankly gain even more of a competitive edge against some of our global competitors? It's a perfect time for us to do it. So this isn't just about averting a downside. This is also about we got a real upside in our grasp if we do something right now. I'm very confident about that. So while what Congress has done really since the summer of 2011 on the debt ceiling debacle has shaken the confidence of the American public and the ability to compromise and find a deal, we can avert a significant downside, and we should, and we can grab on to what I think is a major upside if we find an agreement. I'm going to come right over here. There was a question over here. Yeah, please.
You're on armed services. Do you have a feeling that we're spending an appropriate amount on military?
Here's yeah.
Much too little? Are there places you should cut?
Here's great question. Obviously, the military budget built up significantly when we were at full ops tempo in 2 wars, and now we're not in the war in Iraq. And we're drawing down in Afghanistan. That does give us some opportunities to find savings. And this is not about can we find savings, because Secretary Gates said we can find savings. Secretary Panetta said we can find savings. I was at the confirmation hearing with Senator Hagel. We can find savings. But the point is, find savings the right way. As part of a budgetary process where you're looking forward and you're assessing your security challenges, find it the right way and don't make the number too ugly. What the sequester does is just take across-the-board cuts to things that probably shouldn't be cut at all. Maybe there's some line items that we shouldn't be doing at all, and then there's some line items where we should be spending more. Sequester treats them all the same, completely non-strategically, makes no sense. Continuing resolution, forcing us to spend pursuant to existing line items. There are line items where we know we shouldn't really be spending one more dollar But as long as we continue a CR without anomalies, we got to spend money in line items that are non-strategic, and there are other line items where we need to be spending more. We're coming about this the wrong way. There are savings that can be found, but I am convinced that the only way you do it is as part of an ordinary forward-looking budget process that takes the good people here who are the planners and the good people in the Pentagon who are planners, have them look forward and find the right level of savings going forward. And we can do that. We need to do it in every line item in the federal budget, but let's do it the right way, not the wrong way. Yeah, follow up.
What are those line items that we should cut?
Well, during the campaign, here we spend money in Medicare, the number 2 line item in the budget, Medicare and Medicaid. We do not negotiate for pricing of prescription drugs like anybody would, any corner pharmacy would do, any Walmart with a pharmaceutical department would do. If we could do that, we would save billions of dollars a year. So I've gone right to one of the hot button issues, which is, can you find a savings in an entitlement program? On the defense side, look, I still believe, as a member of the Armed Services Committee, and I'm new, so I'm advancing propositions and then debating and arguing with people, but I still believe we have a base structure that is pretty heavily organized around a Cold War mentality, where the need, we sort of defined our forward deployment as we needed fixed force. What the Navy gives us and what Huntington Ingalls and shipbuilders give us is they give us flexible force. To have fixed force in bases in Europe, basically helping Europe provide defense for itself, is a kind of a fixed force model that's quite expensive. In a world of terrorism and non-state actors, and if you fight Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, suddenly you've got Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb. The fixed force isn't so critical. The flexible force is what's critical, and that's what these guys give us. We need to be doing more on cybersecurity. Some of you probably saw over the weekend additional evidence that a lot of the cyber attacks, including cyber attacks on America's power grid, have been directly traced back to the Chinese military. They're not building overseas bases. That's not the way they do things. They're doing other things, and we got to make sure we're spending what we can to counter it. So let's figure out the investments that we've made, that ought to be repurposed to the challenges of tomorrow. We'll find savings there. Some of them we'll repurpose to add on to line items, and some of them we can actually take as savings to help us deal with our deficit. All right, thank you very much. Thanks again.